Every night, I strain my ears to hear her voice. A faint and secretive voice from the other side of the wall. I'm intrigued by that voice from the thin wall every evening. What kind of secrets is she hiding? Ah, look, I can hear it faintly again. Tonight, I pressed my ear against the wall to listen to her secretive voice. My name is Chris, and I'm turning 28 this year. I work for an ID startup. I chose this company because I was impressed by the CEO who founded it. He started the company when he was in college. In no time, he rose to the top of the industry. Of course, he's good at his job, but I think his charismatic nature is what really draws people in. I would say that he is a people person. When the CEO convinces you of something, it's hard to resist. I looked up to him. Someday, I wanted to start my own company just like him and rule from the top. That was my goal. I've been working hard, and people inside the company think pretty highly of me. Even outside, a few folks recognize my name. I'm always grateful, because I feel the CEO favors and supports me. Then one day, the CEO personally called me in. I thought he had a new job for me, so I kept my spirits up before entering his office. After knocking, I heard his voice saying, "Come in." With a large window behind him, the CEO said, looking confident, "Chris, I have a job for you." He began without any preamble. "If it's something I can do, I'll give it my all," I replied. The CEO seemed pleased with my response. Of course, he probably never expected me to answer any differently. "I think everything's going just as he predicted." "I want you to get married," he said with a solid tone. I didn't expect any refusal. I doubt anyone in the company could stand up to the CEO when he's this determined. "Understood. Who's the woman?" I replied, trying to stay as calm as possible. The CEO then made a call to summon someone. Since it's an internal line, it means the woman is an employee at our company. I had a hunch at this point. There's been talk of a woman rumored to be the CEO's mistress within the company. Of course, the CEO is a married man. I'm just being used as a diversion. Excuse me. After a polite knock, the person who walked in was just who I had suspected. An accountant named Catherine. I believe she's about a year older than me. For an ID startup employee, she's quite plain and unremarkable. I can only recall having brief business-related conversations with her. "Chris has agreed to everything, Catherine. You'll marry Chris." The CEO's words Catherine quietly nodded. She looked at me, tilted her head slightly, and said, "Pleased to be working with you." I couldn't read anything from that expression. It wasn't emotionless, but I couldn't tell what she was thinking. That's how I ended up as a guy who won the CEO's mistress. After a secret office romance, I thought the fake marriage would be just about living together, but we actually got legally married. Couldn't fool the HR department. The CEO provided a new apartment and furnished it entirely for us. It's a marriage with all the bells and whistles. I've decided to keep it a secret from my parents for now. I'll just wing it. If they ever find out, it'll be just a year. They probably won't hear about it in my hometown, out of state. The CEO's order was to divorce after about 6 months to a year, probably when his wife's suspicions cleared up. It's a fake marriage, so we have separate rooms, no intimacy allowed, just like roommates. We didn't have a wedding ceremony, we just took photos. She looked surprisingly beautiful in her white dress, which was a shock. The thick glasses she usually wears were the problem. I didn't know her real face until we took the photos. On our first night as a married couple, she bowed her head to me slowly. "I'm truly sorry for all the trouble because of Jay and Sims. Please bear with it for a while. John is the CEO. His full name is Jonathan," I figured. "So, The rumours about him having a mistress were true. All I could say was, "Oh, okay. If I can endure for half a year to a year, my promotion is guaranteed. But I wonder if she's promised something after that time. Does she intend to always live in the shadows?" Such deep thoughts crossed my mind, but I tried not to dwell on it. I didn't want to get too involved. On the third night of our fake marriage, I woke up in the middle of the night. The beer I had before bed made me thirsty. I left my room to get water from the fridge in the kitchen. The hallway was pitch dark and silent. Then I heard a faint whisper. It was so soft I couldn't make it out clearly. A truly secretive voice. It took me a moment to realize it was Catherine's voice, because the voice was so unbelievably gentle, speaking softly with someone while occasionally laughing. "John, don't laugh too much or he'll wake up." It seemed Catherine was on the phone with the CEO. Currently, it's 2:30 in the morning. They sure seem like they're sneaking around. I tried my best to walk down the hallway without making any noise. I didn't want to rudely interrupt their moment. Playing the role of a husband in a fake marriage is no walk in the park. I sighed, dropped on caffeine and the CEO's whispered conversation through the thin wall. I know it's ethically wrong, but this has become a habit of mine. Catherine and I continued our fake marriage. We barely talk even when we're both home. It's not out of boredom, but I'd like to dip my toes into their secret world every now and then. Maybe I could find some weakness in the CEO. Information is power in this world. The more you know, the closer you are to winning. Tonight, the two of them started their whispered conversation again. Through the wall, I could hear Catherine's voice full of compassion. Of course, I couldn't hear the CEO's voice. However, her comforting words seemed to be constantly cheering him up. And they also healed me. "Are you okay? Are you tired? Are you eating properly?" Such simple and kind words. I wonder if he was trying to make her laugh, but she giggled quite a bit. Even though they were in a relationship, I never heard them say, "I love you." It was just her constantly worrying about him and cheering him up. It's a strange kind of affair. The change in our pretend marriage came about a month after our wedding. She figured out that I had been eavesdropping on our conversations with the CEO. Like always, after she said goodnight, she hung up the phone. I thought I could just go to bed. "Chris, we need to talk." Suddenly Catherine's voice echoed through the wall. I froze on the spot, not sure how to respond. I considered playing dead, but Seren delivered the coup de grace. "I know you're awake. Come out to the living room right now." It felt like she was negotiating with a hostage taker. I gave in, leaving my room for the living room. Catherine followed shortly after. I braced myself for confrontation, ready to apologize. I looked up but was momentarily stunned, caught off guard. I forgot my apology and just stared. She was wearing what seemed to be her high school tracksuit, an emblem and a name embroidered on the matching top and bottoms. And she was wearing even thicker black rim glasses than she had during the day. It was quite a surprising look. After their intimate conversations, I was expecting something more seductive, but this had zero appeal. In front of me flabbergasted me. Catherine quickly brewed some tea for us. "Eavesdropping is not acceptable. It's against the rules, isn't it?" I was accused, and it irked me. Breaking the rules. A fake marriage is also breaking the rules. Hell, having an affair might as well be breaking the rules. To hear breaking the rules from your lips, Catherine, you sure can say that with a straight face. I intended to apologize, but ended up making a sharp retort. I guess the stress of this fake marriage had been building up. It's not entirely Catherine's fault, but I felt like all the blame was on her. I greatly admire the CEO. The CEO is not at fault. I'm well aware. This is a biased opinion. I follow my own rules, she said so firmly that I was left speechless. She gestured for me to sit on the living room couch. I sat in silence, facing her directly. It was the first time I'd really looked at her since this fake marriage began. Please, no more eavesdropping. It's an invasion of privacy. Hearing her straightforward point triggered me. I did agree to this fake marriage as a part of a deal with the co. They probably see me as a pitiful man who was led by ambition. Perhaps even looked down upon. Realizing this, I felt a mix of shame and unreasonable anger. I wanted to unleash all of my anger onto Catherine, who sat in front of me with a composed look. My clenched fists trembled with rage. Don't you have anything to say? Her matter-of-fact tone made my restraint fly out the window. What? Who do you think you are, acting all high and mighty while being the CEO's mistress? Without this fake marriage, you wouldn't even have a place here. I stood up abruptly, but she calmly looked up at me, lifting her chin just a bit. There was no emotion on her face. It seemed my words didn't get to her at all. You probably laughed behind my back, thinking I'm a low life for accepting such a ridiculous deal for my own advancement, right? Pathetic. Ranting on, I was practically full with rage. This fake marriage made me despise myself for the first time. I feel like such a fool. Indeed, all the words that I lashed out at Kaffir and were what I wanted to hurl at myself. You should be proud of yourself, Chris. You accepted the dirty job based on your beliefs. There's nothing to be ashamed of, she said, looking me straight in the eyes. From her tone and sincere expression, I could tell she wasn't just trying to console me with empty words. Her words deflated my anger instantly, and I was taken aback. Chris, you're a man of conviction. Feeling weak in the knees, I sat back on the couch. How did she know exactly what I needed to hear? I'm sorry I took out my frustrations on you. When I think about it, Catherine is also a victim of the CEO's ego. Seeing her serious face, I began to calm down. You've heard the rumours about me and the CEO, haven't you? It seems his wife found out about them. Catherine explained everything step by step. I hadn't heard any details from the CEO. She took the initiative to talk to me, thinking it would be stressful for me in such a situation. It seems the CEO had Catherine and me enter into a fake marriage to deceive his wife. If we went as far as getting married, suspicions would naturally be cleared. It's apparently a matter of patience until his wife lets her guard down. Can I ask you just one thing? If I can answer it. I posed a question that had been on my mind for a long time. Are you the CEO's mistress? There are indeed rumours in the company that the two of them are in a romantic relationship. But that's based on minor things like seeing them walking closely together or meeting privately. There's no concrete proof of a romantic relationship. I wanted to clear this up. Catherine looked slightly troubled by my question. She seemed to be pondering the best way to answer, opening her mouth, then closing it again. She hesitated. How can I put this to make it clear to you? I'm not sure if I'd call it a romantic relationship. However, I do feel that the CEO looks out for me. I felt there wasn't a trace of deceit in her carefully chosen words. I see. Thank you for sharing. Her tone and sincere expression deflated my anger instantly. Here's a suggestion for me. Since it's a fake marriage, why don't we try to enjoy it a bit? Catherine looked genuinely surprised by my proposal. I've never seen her with such a shocked expression. She looked adorable, like a surprised squirrel. Oh, I don't mean it in a weird way. I'm talking about enjoying our 10 years of married life. It'd be tough to keep using formal language with each other for 6 months, especially since we worked together. Being distant might come off as odd, don't you think? Catherine listened to me with a tilted head. Then, with a chuckle, she extended her right hand. "Well, let's make the best of it, shall we, husband?" When I shook her hand, it was small, and it gave me a slight thrill. Ever since that night where we had an honest conversation, the distance between Catherine and I has been rapidly shrinking. We commute together, and I eat the lunch she prepares for me. When one of us has to work late, we let each other know. Whoever has more free time handles the chores. Living together, you get to see sides of her you wouldn't have known at the office, like how she burns her tongue easily or hates mushrooms, or how she's not the best at folding laundry, or how she dreams of adopting a canine from a rescue centre. I love watching her laugh out loud at comedy shows by my side, but that's where my exclusive time with her ends. Late at night, she gets calls from the CEO. Whenever the phone rings, she retreats to her room for a private conversation with him. I feel completely left out. Every day the nights feel lonelier, and it bothers me. The CEO remains unchanged. He treats both me and her the same way as before. I was getting a bit irritated by his attitude. Did he really trust her? Or did he not think for a moment that she could fall for me? By the time half a year had passed, I realized I was in love with Catherine, but in her heart there was only room for the CEO. I was fully aware of that, yet I couldn't let go of that slight hope. I was told that this fake marriage would last between 6 months to a year. I was surprised at myself for wishing this life would go on forever. Time has passed, and it was halfway through our fake marriage. Catherine and I had a rhythm going, understanding each other's likes and dislikes much like a real couple. On weekends, she joined me in my passion for outdoor activities, even trying camping for the first time. Now she's eager to try solo camping. Lately, we've spent every weekend shopping at outdoor stores. For me, I've become a fan of the tea she brews after meals. She looks so dignified and beautiful gracefully preparing her tea. When I expressed a desire to learn the art of tea making, she introduced me to a class, and now we attend together. After our tea class, we always grab some burgers together. She gets as excited as a child when I take her to a new tasty spot. I wish this happy life would continue forever. Just when I started to wish from the bottom of my heart, something happened at my office desk. I was occupied with loads of work today. I had plans to dine out with her. There's no way I could work late. That's when I spotted her sneaking between the desks. In her hand, she held an envelope and a list, probably collecting money for some occasion. Whenever there's something to celebrate or mourn at the office, Catherine, being in accounting, collects the funds. It was a familiar sight. "I'm sorry for interrupting your work. I'm here to collect some money." She stood next to my desk. "Is someone getting married or did something unfortunate happen?" I asked her while searching for my wallet. I could sense a hint of tension in her posture. She was behaving differently. So I looked up. Her face was as expressionless as always, but now I could tell she was desperately hiding her emotions. The CEO's wife is pregnant, so it's a celebration. My hand jerked in surprise, dropping my wallet, coins scattered on the floor with a clicking sound. The CEO's baby. But Catherine bent down to carefully pick up the coins. "Well, the CEO has been married for 5 years now. It's about time, right? It's wonderful news," she said flatly, placing the coins gently in my palm. "I'll come back later to collect. Take your time," she said, and left, her retreating figure looking smaller than ever. Watching her back, anger towards the CEO welled up in me. He tricked Catherine, pretending to be loyal to his wife all the while. Catherine had been waiting for him. What's the point of our fake marriage? I was suddenly filled with resentment towards the CEO. I need to talk to him. I headed towards the CEO's office. Just as I was about to knock, the CEO's secretary opened the door. He looked surprised and said, "Perfect timing." Apparently he was about to call me. Nodding to the secretary, I entered the CEO's office. The CEO seemed just as I remembered him, recognizing me. He gestured for me to come closer. "You've worked hard till now. I've arranged the position you wanted. The fake marriage is over," he said. Then he handed me something, a name tag with a new title on it. Among my colleagues, it was an unbelievably rapid promotion. It was everything I had aimed for since joining the company. "Aren't you going to be more excited? Now you can finally date freely. Plus, with this position, you'll have your pick of the ladies, right?" The CEO, however, his eyes aren't laughing. "You're no longer needed. I'll be taking Catherine back." Anger surged as the words left the CEO's mouth. Catherine isn't an object. The way the CEO casually mentioned taking her back infuriated me. Isn't she free to live her life? Do you plan on keeping her trapped and making her suffer forever? It was the first time I'd ever stood up to the CEO, but I felt that I had to say something. Pretty noble words coming from a guy who faked a marriage for a position. The CEO laughed sarcastically, looking at me with disdain. I might have been intimidated before, but not now. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I don't need this position because I have no intention of divorcing her. She's already my wife," I blurted out, staring down the CEO. The CEO frowned in displeasure. "Who do you think you are? You think you're in this position by yourself and that you can have Catherine. Get over yourself." The CEO yelled at me. The usually composed CEO was yelling. "If you want divorce, you are fired. Can you really give up the position you wanted so desperately? You've always been so ambitious." The CEO and I locked eyes, tension filling the room. Then, without a knock, the door to the CEO's office swung open. "John, don't my feelings matter to you?" It was Catherine. Her face wasn't its usual expressionless self. Her face crumpled, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Catherine, could it be you too?" The CEO's voice hardened at Catherine's expression. "I want divorce. I no longer need your protection, John. You have a duty to make your wife happy." With that, she turned and gave me a smile. I was taken aback and speechless. It was the first time I heard her true feelings. Chris respects my freedom. He teaches me new things and tries to share the same view as me. I don't want to wait any more for what's to be given. The CEO, after hearing her words, slumped into his chair and held his head. "What did I do wrong? You said you wanted me to wait, so I did without laying a hand on you. I even proposed a fake marriage to protect you. What did I do wrong? Are you abandoning me too?" She seemed to chew on the CEO's groaning words. "John, you have to realize I'm just a convenient little sister figure for you, right? It's also hard for me to continue deceiving you with kind gestures." The CEO looked up at her, his eyes resembling those of a forsaken child. She wore a compassionate smile. "I will become Chris's wife, a real wife, through sickness and old age, always together." She smiled, and I nodded strongly. Our hands clenched tightly, hers responding with a gentle squeeze. "Thank you for everything, CEO." I bowed to the man I'd always admired. "Both of you, get out. Don't show your faces again. Leave the apartment as soon as possible." Energetically, we replied, "Sure," as we exited his office. Catherine and I then resigned together and quickly moved out of the apartment. I'm glad that it was you that I married for the fake marriage, she said, this as we left the building. Let's look forward to starting today. The pleasure is all mine, my sweetie, she whispered into my ear, making me jump. I blushed, covering my ears, and Catherine burst into laughter. It seems Catherine always had the upper hand. I had a feeling I'd be under her thumb, but I thought it would be fun. As long as I'm with her, I may have lost the career success I dreamed of, but I gained something much more precious. I believe I'm the real winner in life. I will make you happy no matter what, I told her earnestly. She laughed and said, I'm counting on it. I'm willing to bet my entire life on meeting her expectations.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look, "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1, if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike. What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.